jungle exhales heat before the sun even clears the tree line. At Port Moresby, ground crews move through the gray half-light of dawn, boots sinking into damp steel matting, hands raw from hauling camouflage netting off 12 strange, angular fighters. Twin blooms. Twin engines. A shape no one in the Pacific has ever seen in numbers like
Red leader, I'm going in.
The Americans call it
Watch your tail, Johnny!
It is December 27, 1942.
I have him in my sights.
And in a few hours, the sky over New Guinea is going to change forever. Coast watchers hidden in the hills below Buda have already sent a warning crackling down the wire. A Japanese strike force is forming. Dive bombers, fighter escort, nearly 40 aircraft are gone. For 13 months, that kind of formation has meant one thing to Allied airmen: run or die. The Mitsubishi Zero has owned these skies since the first weeks of the war. It turns inside anything the Americans can put in the air. Pilots flying P-39s and P-40s learn that lesson in blood: turn with a zero, and you don't come home. But the pilots strapping into their cockpits this morning aren't planning to turn with anything. Captain Thomas Lynch settles into his seat and runs his eyes across the gauges one more time. Beside him, a young second lieutenant from Wisconsin, a farm boy, quiet, sharp-eyed, checks his own instruments with the same care. His name is Richard Bong. He's borrowed onto this mission while his own squadron waits for its aircraft to arrive. He has no idea that in a few hours, his name will start becoming legend. Engines catch. One by one, twin propellers chew into the wet morning air, and the Lightnings begin to climb point 18,000 feet above Buna. The Americans wait. Below them, the Japanese formation drones on toward its target, utterly unaware of what's circling above. A few of these pilots have glimpsed the twin-boomed aircraft before, at a distance, and dismissed it. Too big, too strange, probably a bomber, maybe a scout. Nothing to fear. They are about to be wrong in the worst possible way. Lynch tips his Lightning over and drops. The dive builds fast, 300, 350, past 400 miles an hour. The whole airframe shuddering with the strain, engines howling behind him like something alive. He picks his target and holds it in his sights far longer than any American fighter pilot has dared before. 400 yards. 300. The Zero's own guns can't reach that far. Lynch's can. He fires. The Japanese fighter simply comes apart in the air. A burst of orange, a scatter of falling metal, and then it's gone, tumbling toward the green canopy below. Behind him, Bong rolls in on a Zero closing on his captain's tail. His first combat burst in his life finds the mark instantly, and the enemy fighter spins away trailing black smoke, spiraling down into the jungle. There's no time to watch it fall. 3 more Zeros are already turning toward him, and for one heartbeat, the old fear flickers: turn and fight, turn and die. Bong doesn't turn. He pushes the throttles forward and dives. The Lightning answers instantly, accelerating past 450 miles an hour, and the Zeros, the fighters that have never been outrun by anything, simply fall away behind him, unable to follow without their own wings tearing off in the dive. Bong pulls out just above the treetops, breathing hard, and spots a lone dive bomber recovering low over the jungle. One short burst. It's over in seconds. 2 kills. His first 2. He doesn't know it yet, but it's the beginning of the finest record any American fighter pilot will ever fly. 10 minutes. That's all this engagement lasts. 10 minutes, and 12 Japanese aircraft go down in flames. Not a single Lightning is lost. Back at their base at Rabaul, the pilots who survived try to explain what happened, and their commanders don't quite believe them. Aircraft with impossible speed. Fighters that dive faster than a Zero can follow and climb back to altitude before anyone can catch them. Attacks that come from 400 yards out, from angles no one expected, from a fighter nobody has bothered to study closely. Somewhere in a briefing room, a Japanese intelligence officer stares at his notes and realizes he has badly, dangerously underestimated an enemy aircraft. It won't be the last time. For over a year, Japanese naval aviation has ruled these skies through pure skill in the turn, tight radius, brutal agility. Pilots trained from the beginning to get on an enemy's tail and stay there. It is a language of combat they speak better than anyone else alive. The Lightning refuses to speak that language at all. .2 Allison engines, each roaring out over 1,000 horsepower, keep pulling hard at altitudes where other fighters gasp and lose their bite. A turbo supercharger feeds them power all the way up past 40,000 feet, thin, freezing air where a Zero pilot's own engine begins to choke. And in the nose, mounted dead center, a cannon and 4 heavy machine guns fire in a single, deadly cone straight ahead. No need to angle for convergence, no compromise, just raw concentrated fire the moment the enemy fills the sight. Speed, altitude, firepower. Strike, dive away, climb back to the perch, and strike again. It is a new grammar of aerial combat, and it demands something almost unnatural of these pilots: the discipline to never, ever turn and fight, no matter how badly instinct screams at them to do it. Days later, on January 7th, 9 Lightnings escorting bombers run into roughly 20 Japanese fighters. By every rule anyone has ever written, the outnumbered Americans should go defensive, should scatter, should run for home. Instead, they climbed 25,000 feet above everything. And then they come down. Bong is flying again, still borrowed, still proving himself. He rolls in on an Oscar fighter from 300 yards, fires, and watches it fall away burning. Enemy fighters below tried to claw upward after him, engine straining, and Bong simply pulls his stick back into a long climbing turn, a maneuver the pilots will start calling the chandelle, and by the time the Japanese fighters reach his altitude, he's already gone, repositioned, waiting, choosing his next target on his own terms. This is the nightmare no Japanese pilot has trained for. A Zero can outturn anything in the sky, but it cannot outdive a Lightning without its wings failing. It cannot outclimb a Lightning's zoom without stalling into a spin. And it can never catch a Lightning that simply decides the fight is over and leaves. The horizontal world these pilots mastered has been replaced by something vertical, something three-dimensional, something that punishes every instinct they've spent years perfecting, and the psychological toll is just as brutal as the tactical one. Word spreads through Japanese squadrons: watch the sun, watch above you, death can fall from altitudes you can't even reach. Veteran pilots, men who have never known real fear in the cockpit, start flying with one eye permanently on the empty sky overhead. Through the winter and into spring of 1943, more Lightning squadrons arrive. Pilots study every combat report from Lynch, from Bong, refining the doctrine as they go. Altitude is life insurance. Speed is life. New maneuvers get names: the high-speed yo-yo, trading speed for altitude mid-fight; the barrel roll attack, holding a gun's sight on target while never losing momentum. Japan answers with new aircraft, faster interceptors, heavier armament, but nothing built in time, in numbers, that can truly close the gap above 20,000 feet. Then, in March, the Lightnings prove they can do more than win dogfights. Flying high cover over the Bismarck Sea, they tear through Zero escorts trying to protect a Japanese convoy, and with the sky cleared, Allied bombers finish the job below. 8 transports and 4 destroyers sent to the bottom, an entire reinforcement effort drowned in a single, devastating strike. By August, a new name joins the roster of Lightning aces: Thomas McGuire. Flying his very first combat mission over Wewak, shoots down 3 enemy fighters before the sun goes down. 3 days later, he's an ace. He'll go on to write the tactics manual that other pilots across the entire theater will study before they ever climb into a cockpit. Vertical scissors, coordinated attacks, Lightnings working in pairs to trap a Zero between them with nowhere left to run. But nothing captures the Lightning's reach quite like what happens on the morning of April 18, 1943. American codebreakers have cracked a message revealing something extraordinary: the precise flight schedule of Admiral Yamamoto, architect of Pearl Harbor, the most respected strategist in the Japanese Navy, on an inspection tour of forward bases in the Solomons. The mission that follows shouldn't be possible. Over 400 miles of open ocean. No landmarks. No radio contact. Just dead reckoning navigation held to the minute, at wave-top height, in total radio silence, for over 2 hours. Major John Mitchell leads 16 Lightnings on the longest fighter intercept of the entire war, and his timing is close to perfect. At 9:34 in the morning, exactly on schedule, Two Japanese bombers appear on the horizon with their fighter escort in tow. Captain Thomas Lanphier and Lieutenant Rex Barber peel off and dive. Barber's guns find the lead bomber, and it goes down trailing smoke into the jungle canopy below, carrying Yamamoto with it. The shockwave of that single moment travels through the entire Japanese military. If American fighters can reach out across hundreds of miles of empty ocean and strike with that kind of precision, then nowhere is truly safe anymore. Japanese fighter doctrine turns defensive almost overnight. Engage only with overwhelming advantage. Disengage the moment the first attack fails. The aggressive spirit that carried Japan's air power from Pearl Harbor onward has begun to quietly, permanently break. New Japanese fighters arrived through the rest of 1943, faster, better armed, but never in the numbers needed, never quite matching the Lightning above 25,000 feet. By November, Japanese daylight air operations over the Solomons have all but stopped. Ships move only under cover of darkness now. Supply runs slip through in the dead of night, submarines and destroyers making desperate dashes between islands that used to belong entirely to Japan. The numbers tell a story of their own. Entire Japanese fighter groups are gutted within months, 80 pilots reduced to 10, 70% losses in half a year, whole squadrons pulled from combat because there's simply nothing left to send back up. And when a Lightning pilot goes down, more often than not, air-sea rescue is waiting somewhere below. When a Japanese pilot goes down over that same water, there is usually no one coming for him at all. Back in Burbank, California, Lockheed's production lines are turning out 10 Lightnings a day, then more. Japan's entire fighter production, spread across every type, still can't keep pace. And much of what they do build stays home now, held back to defend the islands themselves. Richard Bong keeps climbing through the record books. By the spring of 1944, he has passed the mark set by America's legendary ace from the First World War. His technique has become almost surgical: climb high, wait, choose the shot, fire in short, precise bursts, and be gone before the enemy even understands what happened. Over Hollandia, he downs 3 enemy fighters in under 5 minutes, each one a clean, unanswerable vertical strike. By the time the Philippines campaign opens in the fall of 1944, the outcome in the air is almost a formality. Lightning squadrons secure control of the sky within days. On a single afternoon in November, one group alone accounts for 26 enemy aircraft destroyed, without losing a single Lightning of their own. Some Japanese pilots, out of tactics, out of options, begin resorting to ramming attacks, a desperate, honorable, hopeless answer to an enemy they can no longer outfly, outclimb, or outrun. By the war's final year, there is nothing left that a Japanese fighter can do better than the Lightning. Nothing. When the accounting is finally done, Lightning squadrons in the Southwest Pacific are credited with more than 1,500 enemy aircraft destroyed, against fewer than 200 Lightnings lost to enemy action. A kill ratio that has rarely, if ever, been matched in the history of aerial warfare. But the numbers were never really the point. What happened above Buna, above Bismarck Sea, above that stretch of empty ocean where Yamamoto's bomber went down, it wasn't just a squadron finding its rhythm. It was the sound of an old kind of war ending, and a new one beginning. Turning radius stopped mattering. Instinct stopped mattering. What mattered now was altitude, and speed, and the discipline to trust a strange twin-boom fighter that refused to fight on anyone else's terms but its own. The pilots who flew it remembered it differently for the rest of their lives. American airmen recalled the confidence of holding the high ground, the comfort of 2 engines humming steady over endless ocean, the quiet certainty that they, and not the enemy, would choose when the fighting began. Japanese veterans remembered something else entirely: a shadow, twin-tailed, falling out of the sun from somewhere they could never quite reach, and the long, cold years of learning to fear a sky that used to belong to them. Somewhere over those islands, in 10 short minutes on a December morning, the future of air combat was already being written. It just took the rest of the war for everyone else to read it.